Hi, today we're going to be working on 11.2, solving quadratic equations by completing the square. What I want to make sure that all of you do is to read through the notes as well as go through the examples with me. Completing the square is just another way to solve quadratic equations. This first example is to show you guys how to create a perfect square trinomial. A perfect square trinomial has a certain aspect about it, and I'm going to walk you through it. Back in Algebra 1, you learned this. However, it's been a long time since Algebra 1, so let me help you and walk you through it. First of all, you guys, on letters A and B, those are just going to, we have a quantity of x plus 4 squared. Now, if you don't know the formula, just write it down twice. So I have x plus 4 times x plus 4. That means you have two of them. So x plus 4 times x plus 4. I'm going to multiply them like you learned years ago. So that gives me x squared. I multiply these two together. That gives me 4x. I'm going to multiply these two together. That gives me another 4x. I'm going to multiply these two together, and that gives me 16. I'm going to add like terms, so I get x squared plus 4x is 8x plus 16. Now, I'm going to show you what the formula is. I don't know if I can write over here, but I'm going to try to. The formula is this, a plus b squared. The formula is a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. Now, if you have something that looks like this, a minus b squared, that formula is a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. So let me show you how you go from factoring something that looks like this and making it look like this. The very first thing you do is you look at your first term. The square root of the first term is x. That's what this is right here. You look at the last term. The last term is 16. So the square root of 16 is 4. Whatever the sign is right before the 8, that is what this sign here is going to be. So let me show you how you can check your answers. X times x is x squared. 4 times 4 is 16. X times 4 is 4x. 4x times 2 is 8x. So that's how using this formula helps you take a perfect square trinomial and to actually factor it. Also, if they give you a binomial square, you don't even have to multiply it. You can just use this formula over here, which we're going to do for letter B. Now, if I use the formula for letter B, this is how you would do it. You look at the first term. X times x is x squared. You look at the last term. Negative 5 times negative 5 is a positive 25. Now, x times a negative 5 is a negative 5x. You multiply it by 2, and that gives you a negative 10x. So, if you learn these formulas, all you have to do is just do the math in your head instead of writing it all down. So this turns out to be a perfect square trinomial because you can square root the first term, you can square root the last term. And when you multiply them together and you times it by 2, it gives you the middle term. All right? So on letter C, what they're going to do is they're going to ask you, what is this last term? And you don't know what it is, but it's an easy way to find it. What you use is this formula. The formula is b over 2 squared. So your b value is 10. So 20 divided by 2 squared. 20 divided by 2 is 10 squared. And now when you square that, you get 100. So 100 would go right there. Same thing over here. Your b is negative 6. You divide it by 2. Whoops, let me go ahead and start that. All right. Keeps me a timer so I don't go too far. All right, so sorry. So then I get squared. Now, negative 6 divided, And if you're wondering where I got the -6, that is your b value. That's your middle term. So -6 divided by 2 is -3. Don't forget it's still squared. Now -3 squared is 9. So that means you're going to add a 9 right there. Okay, so this is almost the process of completing the square. We just kind of explained to you guys why perfect square trinomials are very, very important. Now let's go to an actual problem. This problem here says, did I just jump? I did. Okay. Solving a quadratic equation by completing the square. Now, in order to complete the square, you must have a quadratic equation, which we do. We have x squared minus 2x minus 10 equals 0. Now, because it's a quadratic equation and they want us to complete the square, in order to complete the square, the a must be 1, and it is. It's 1x squared. Another thing, you guys, you must have the variables on one side and you must move the constant to the other side. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add 10 to both sides. And the reason why is because I want to make a perfect square trinomial. So I'm going to write down what I have left here. And I'm going to do something a little different. I like to make an x squared minus 2x plus something. I don't know what that something is yet because you're going to have to figure out what it is. And I'll show you how in just a second. And then on this side, I'm left with 10. So my goal in life is to make this look like here. So I need to figure out what actually goes here. And when I figure out what actually goes there, I can then add it to the other side. All right? And once I figure out what goes here, I can put things that are in here. I actually can fill this out right now, tell you the truth. I can fill this out right now. And the way to fill this out right now is this. The square root of x squared is x. Half of -2. So what I'm going to do is half of -2 squared. Because remember my formula is b over 2 squared. Okay, so that leaves me with -1 squared. So before you square it, it's just half of -2 is -1. So I know that is completely finished already. Now, in order to figure out what goes here, I'm going to actually square this. -1 squared is 1. So I'm going to put a 1 here. If I add a 1 there, I must add a 1 here. So I end up with 11. So now this is the same type of problem that we did in 11.1. Your goal is to get the square away. So by doing that, you're going to square root it. So you're left with x minus 1 equals plus or minus the square root of 11. Now remember from 11.1, you want to get x by itself. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides. And I'm left with x equals 1 plus or minus the square root of 11. And there you go. You can't combine 1 and square root of 11 because they're different terms. Now, I'm going to warn you. I prefer to use the completing the square method, especially if my b value is an even number. It just makes it easier than using factoring or quadratic formula or anything like that. So this is just another method on solving quadratic equations. So now what I'm going to do is, let's do this one. Now this problem has already the constant on the other side of the equation. My a is 1, so I can go ahead and just start completing the square for this problem. So you end up with x squared plus 4x plus something. I like to put that little blank spot. It's just helpful. You don't have to, but it's helpful. My constant is already on the other side, so I'm good to go. On this side here, remember, you're always going to have a parenthesis squared. You have to figure out what goes in here, and it's not difficult. All you have to do is this. Look at your first term, x squared. When you square root it, you get x. Look at your middle term. Your middle term is 4x. The coefficient is 4. Half of 4 is 2, and that is a positive 2. Now, I'm going to actually show my work. In order to figure out what this number is, remember, it's always your b value divided by 2 squared. My b value happens to be 4. When I square that, well, 4 divided by 4 is 2. That's why there's a 2 here. Now, when I square that, I get 4. So I'm going to actually put a 4 here, and then I'm going to also add a 4 to the other side, because whatever you do to one side, you must do to the other side. Now, on this side here, 1 plus 4 is 5. Now, just like lesson 11.1, my dog is talking with me. I'm so sorry. I got to get rid of the square. So I'm going to square root both sides. And I get x plus 2 equals plus or minus the square root of 5. So now on this one, same thing. We've got to get x by itself. So I'm going to minus 2 from both sides. And I'm going to get x equals negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 5. And there's your answer. Remember though, you guys, on your homework, it might look like this. Whoops. I don't even know what I was drawing. Okay, so this could be negative 2 plus the square root of 5, negative 2 minus the square root of 5. All right, let's try to do one more. And I just want to see how many more. Yeah, let's do one more, and then we'll be done. And I'm okay on time. All right, so let's do this one real quickly. First of all, this is a quadratic equation. They want us to complete the square. There is a 1 for your a value, so we're good to go. So I know that I'm going to have to move this 1 over, so I'm going to add 1 to both sides. I get x squared plus 3x plus something. It's always plus something equals 1. So I'm going to have a little parenthesis, squared. Remember, it's always going to be there. The square root of x squared is x. Now, this is the only part that might be tricky. I need to take half of 3, half of a positive 3. You can't really do that, so it's just a half of 3 over 2. No big deal whatsoever. I'm actually going to show all my work again, just to kind of help you guys. So my b is 3. I can't actually divide 2 into 3, and I don't want a decimal. Do not make it a decimal. So when I actually square that, I get 3 times 3 is 9, and 2 times 2 is 4. So I'm going to add 9. I'm going to put 9/4 here, and I'm going to add 9/4 here. Okay? Now here's the tricky part. I don't like fractions just as much as you guys don't like fractions. And I get 1 plus 9/4. So when you add fractions, you have to have a common denominator. My denominator is 4. So does everybody out there believe that 4 divided by 4 is really 1? So that right there is 1 plus 9/4. Now, because we now have a common denominator, which is 4, I can add my numerators together. So that gives me 13. So over here, it's going to be 13 over 4. Now, in order to get rid of this square, I have to square root both sides. So I'm left with x plus 3/2 equals plus or minus. And I like to break it up. I like to have, instead of having one big giant square root, I like to do this, only because then I can see it better. So because I'm running out of room, I'm going to go over here. So that leaves me with x plus 3/2 equals plus or minus the square root of 13 over the square root of 4 is 2. I can't square root 13. Now I need to get x by itself. So I'm going to minus 3/2 from both sides. And I'm left with x equals negative 3/2 plus or minus the square root of 13 over 2. And now you have completely finished the problem. You guys remember though, your homework problems might look like this. So just to, that's a 13, right? Yes. So your actual homework might look like that. All right, just to let you guys know. All right, we're going to stop now. I hope you guys have a great day. There will be another video come here shortly, and have a great day, everyone.